end of the world. I could feel all this death.
Everything they've built will fall! And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one!
You're seeing footage that was taken when the quake struck. You're looking at Kumamoto Castle in Kumamoto City. And this is footage from within Kumamoto City. The meteorological agency says the focus is 10 kilometers deep. The agency says there's no quake occurred around 9:26 p.m. on Thursday night. And this is footage taken right after the quake struck in a supermarket in Kumamoto. And this is the scene in the NHK newsroom in Kumamoto. At the time of the jolt, desktop computers began shaking and books fell from shelves. Once again, a magnitude 6.4 earthquake struck the southwestern Japanese prefecture of Kumamoto. The jolt registered the maximum 7 on the Japanese seismic scale.
9:26 p.m. The earthquake jolts Japan's southwestern island of Kyushu. A weather camera overlooking Kumamoto City captures the moment. The tremors knock down buildings, tear up roads, and set off fires. People in the tens of thousands spend the night outdoors.
I give my heartfelt condolences to the people who passed away from the earthquake last night. Aftershocks are still occurring, so we would like to give our best efforts to prevent any secondary disasters.
In daylight, the extent of the damage is revealed. Parts of the Kumamoto Castle, a 15th century cultural landmark, have crumbled. A bullet train is thrown off track. Thousands of homes are without power, and the region is still not in the clear.
A very strong quake has been measured and damage has occurred in the area. Local residents, please check your surrounding situation. If you observe any danger, please move to a safer area. Ensure your own safety. There are many aftershocks and they may continue over the next week.
This house, compromised in the initial quake, finally buckles. Police, firefighters and the military are out to help with rescue and cleanup. No tsunami warning has been issued and the nuclear reactors on the island are operating as usual. Japan remains on edge since a 2011 undersea quake triggered a massive tsunami and nuclear meltdown. The country is weathering much better this time as one of the most earthquake-prone places on Earth. Gerald Tan, Al Jazeera.
An earthquake measuring roughly 7.2 magnitude jolted northern Myanmar at 1:55 p.m. GMT, according to the China Earthquake Network Center. The epicenter, with a depth of 130 kilometers, struck in the Indian-Myanmar border area around 400 kilometers northwest of the capital Naypyidaw. No casualties or substantial damage has so far been reported. Strong tremors were also felt in India, Bangladesh, and China's Tibet Autonomous Region. In Lhasa, some residents were seen rushing out of their houses for safety.
Omar Villafranca is with us from Wiley, one of the hardest hit places in Texas. Omar, the images we see there look biblical. What's the latest out there?
Well, people are waking up this morning now that the sun is out, and they're trying to clean up after last night's storm. Let me show you a little bit about it, what they're seeing. See this home behind me here, stone facade on the outside, but anything that's glass, chances are it got hit by hail. So people, of course, are covering up their windows. A lot of blinds, too, were punctured through. People were telling us it sounded like someone was throwing big rocks at their windows and also at their house. Of course, with something like this, they're going to have significant storm damage on the roof. Now, I talked to a homeowner who said that's always bad, but it's worse here in this part of Wiley, Texas, just northeast of Dallas, because a few weeks ago, they also had some hail, significantly smaller, but a lot of people filed claims and got a roof repaired. Now they're going to have to do it all over again. Baseball-sized hail does tremendous damage.
I know, it looks like in some of the video that it's snowing because it's all white. Right. You look at the ground, it's just pure white. Sometimes in hailstorms, you get those big baseball-sized pieces of hail, but not that much, Omar. Were these people prepared for this type of storm?
In this area, people are always ready for storms, and it's not a question of if you're going to get hit, but when. Some part of North Texas is always going to get hit by storms, so people are prepared for it. Were they ready for hail? Yes. And they said, a lot of people said they had a false sense of security because they were getting penny-sized hail, so they thought, okay, we can handle this. But then it kept on coming. It kept on coming. Somebody told me, I talked to a woman who was walking with her kids. They said it started small, and they thought they were going to be okay. But when it started getting heavier, that's when they went into their closet, and they heard glass breaking in all their rooms. And they came out, and there was glass all over the floor, mixed in with hail. A hail chunk the size of a baseball eventually melts, so not only is there glass all over their floor, the floor is sopping wet. A lot of cleanup here today.
Omar Villafranca, thank you so much for joining us.
Much of India is now grappling with an intense heat wave, with some areas reporting soaring temperatures of over 40 degrees Celsius. Since last week, the eastern state of Odisha, as well as the southern states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, have recorded a total of 130 deaths due to sunstrokes induced by the heat wave. And the country's Weather Bureau said the extreme temperature is caused by the El Niño phenomenon, delaying the usual April rainfalls. However, the Bureau said India will experience above normal rainfalls later this year.
The Fox News alert: a magnitude 7.0 earthquake has hit southern Japan, and a tsunami advisory in effect for some areas. We'll be talking about that with our meteorologist Rick Reichmuth in just a bit. He'll give us some context on this. In the meantime, a Fox News alert from Japan, where the U.S. Geological Survey now reporting a 7.0 magnitude earthquake rocking the southern part of the country after a 6.5 quake killed at least 9 people there yesterday and injured more than 800 others. Meteorologist Rick Reichmuth has more context for us. Rick?
Yeah, you know, interesting. Generally, when you see an earthquake follow a day or two afterwards, it's an aftershock, and usually they're smaller. So it is a little bit not as common to get a stronger earthquake one day later. This is the area, the southernmost island here, or bigger, more significant island here in Japan right there. But this last one happening within the last hour. And to put this into context, this is at least 16 times stronger than the earthquake that they saw yesterday that ended up being responsible for the 19 lives and all of the damage that was done there. So think about the buildings that were weakened from yesterday's earthquake, and now you have those weakened structures now getting a much stronger earthquake today. Certainly very rough conditions going on, and a lot of scary times right here. You mentioned a tsunami. Generally, for a tsunami, you need to have an earthquake over the open ocean. The center of this one over the land here, so tsunami not a biggest concern. And you remember the big tsunami a number of years ago was up here in the northern part of Japan, and it was over a 9 strength, a 9.0 earthquake. So not as strong of one, but certainly when you see what happened yesterday, and then you get another one here just a day later, Greg, the next couple of hours are going to be very dangerous.
They don't need any ambulances, so I told them we'd be back as soon as we could.
People across southern Arkansas are recovering from a combination of powerful wind, thunderstorms, and lightning. A line of strong storms crossed western and central Arkansas on Monday, with the worst damage stretching from Texarkana to El Dorado. Many residents were dealing with trees that fell on their homes.
It was over the top of me. It almost hit me in the head. So I ducked. When I heard the boom, I ducked, and then I looked up and there was a tree in my house.
No, we have nothing. I don't make enough to afford insurance.
Texarkana resident Bill Story describes the moment a tree came down on his home.
And then I heard hail, and I said, "Oh Lord, just protect us from those trees." And by the time they came down, so I didn't start praying soon enough.
The National Weather Service says there were no confirmed tornadoes, even though tornado warnings were issued. Residents say this was still a very powerful storm.
I was outside watching the trees be uprooted. I mean, it sounded just like a freight train.
Emergency officials in Arkansas say lightning or static electricity started several small fires. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
All right, look at the guy to port. Look at the left one. He is on the deck. On the deck, below the bridge link.
We're just getting in these really very disturbing, incredible images, the video of Russian warplanes buzzing a U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS Cook, in international waters in the Baltic Sea. You served as a pilot in the U.S. Air Force. How dangerous is this kind of situation where these fighter jets actually come within 75 feet of the Cook?
Yeah, it's very dangerous. 2 points on that. Number one, 75 feet is actually really close. And this isn't typical operating procedures. If you want to show a force, it's usually not at 75 feet. And the other issue is they were basically simulating a strafing run on our Navy ship. Now, I give a lot of congratulations, I guess, a lot of shout outs to the commander for exercising discipline in this situation. But had this been, for whatever reason, a real strafing run, we would not have known that until after the first pass. So this is very serious escalation. It's also worthy to note, I believe there was a Polish helicopter on board. You know, in 2006, I was in Kyrgyzstan with the military, and the Russians would do this occasionally. They'd overfly our military base just as a show of force, but they would not fly over at 75 feet, and we knew they were just showing off versus this, which is an extremely dangerous escalation.
Long lines for vaccination in São Paulo. The result of a new virus outbreak and new fears. This time it's the H1N1 virus, also known as swine flu. Across the country, it's killed 102 people since the beginning of the year, most of them in São Paulo. With so much attention of late focused on the Zika epidemic, this H1N1 outbreak, beginning during the southern hemisphere summer, caught many people off guard.
We don't really know why this happened. The influenza-type viruses are very unpredictable, but there are some hypotheses. For example, it would have been brought by people who traveled to the northern hemisphere during winter. There was much H1N1 activity in the United States this season, for example.
Health authorities ramped up the yearly vaccine campaign to try to deal with the outbreak ahead of winter.
Mothers are desperate because we have a runny nose and already think the worst. So we have to bring the kids for vaccination. It's a disease with heavy symptoms that can leave lasting side effects. We have to come. It's a no-brainer.
Vaccination against the H1N1 virus is free through the public health system for those considered most vulnerable, like infants and the elderly. For everyone else, immunization costs about $30 in private clinics. And there's no shortage of people willing to spend this money to get protection against the virus. Many private companies also sponsor the immunization of their employees to stop the disease from spreading in the workplace, which should cost them much more in the long run. Cristina Bellinassi came with her 2 children and her housekeeper to get shots, all to make sure home is a safe place.
What we hear is that this is not like any regular flu. It's a dangerous disease that could even kill if you're vulnerable. It's not our case, but I think that if more people take the vaccine, it will be easier to stop the spread of the virus.
Millions of people are getting their injections in preparation for winter, when it's easier for the virus to spread. But the cost factor will still leave large numbers of Brazilians unprotected through a season of uncertainty. Paulo Cabral, CCTV, São Paulo.
Sun Wenlin and Hu Mingliang were hoping to make history, to become the first same-sex couple in China to be legally allowed to marry. So last summer, they submitted an application to do so at their local marriage registry in their hometown in the central Chinese province of Hunan, but it was rejected. So they sued, and earlier this year, to their surprise, a district court in the provincial capital, Changsha, agreed to hear the case. But on Wednesday, the court ruled against the couple. It said even though there is not a law that explicitly forbids same-sex marriage in China, there are several provisions that specify genders of license applications in the country's marriage law. The court's decision is being seen as a blow to LGBT equality in China. Same-sex relations were outlawed until 1997, and until 2001, homosexuality was on the official list of mental illnesses for clinical treatment. And despite advances in recent years, a survey by the Pew Research Center last year showed 61% of China's population still viewed homosexuality as unacceptable. But for Sun and Hu, they say this isn't over. Sun told CNN on Wednesday that the couple plans to appeal this decision and continue to fight for the right to be married. Matt Rivers, CNN.
Our street, our street, our street. What do we want? Democracy. What do we want now? We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
It's a case that's widely being seen as a test of freedom of speech in Germany. Now, a surprise decision to allow a criminal inquiry into one of Germany's most popular comics.
The federal government has examined this request. The Foreign Office, the Justice Ministry, the Interior Ministry and the Chancellery took part in this review. There were diverging opinions between the coalition partners. The result is that in the present case, the federal government will grant its approval.
Last week, Turkey filed a criminal complaint against Jan Böhmermann, who performed a sexually obscene poem poking fun at the Turkish president on ZDF television.
We didn't steal anything.
But Turkey's not amused. Ankaras invoked an old German law against insulting foreign heads of state. Meanwhile, Böhmermann has seen his ratings soar.
Why not? You made fun of us Germans.
But the decision to prosecute the comics proved an awkward choice for Merkel. Europe needs Turkey on side to help reduce the influx of migrants into Europe. While the government's been quick to defend freedom of speech, it's gone a long way in distancing itself from Böhmermann. Opposition parties are furious.
Das, was hier in Richtung Türkei gemacht wird.
What is happening in regards to Turkey and Erdogan is unacceptable. It furthers the upset and it feeds the suspicion that there are links, which shouldn't exist, with the refugee situation and the deal that the government has made with Turkey.
The German courts will now decide whether to file charges against Böhmermann. Insulting a foreign head of state could lead to a fine or prison sentence. ZDF television, who quickly withdrew the clip from its archives, says it didn't break the law. Meanwhile, Jan Böhmermann has been given police protection. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera.